I'm going to show you how to make some fun little bags, little zippered bags that could be made as a gift. They're really quick and easy, and you can do them any size. I am using about 12 by 24, and I've pieced my fabric just because these are directional. So both of these I want to come up the side of the bag the right direction, so I have a little bit of a base in here. But anything, any combination that you want to use, and any size is fine. I want a little bit bigger bag with this one for my knitting. I have the two 12 by 24 sets of fabric, so this will be the outer fabric and this will be my lining. Whenever I do lining, I like it to be light. It's easier to see things inside your bag, so try to avoid dark colors. And then I have a piece of batting that is just 11.5 by 23.5 that I'm going to put on the outer part of the bag. You also need a little strip. This is just 2 inches wide by 4 or 6 inches. And this will be the zipper and the zipper pull I'm going to use. That will end up finishing, when we're done with it, at 1 inch less than the width of the bag. So in this case, it'll be 11 inches. And we have these fun zippers on our website with all different kinds of pulls, so you can do all sorts of combinations of colors with it. With that, I'm going to prep my batting onto the back of the outer fabric. So the batting is cut slightly smaller than the outer part of my bag, and you can use anything to connect those two. You can use a glue stick and iron it dry, a little bit of Elmer's glue, which is dissolvable, iron it dry, or a product like this that's a temporary adhesive, or you could quilt it in place. So anything you can do to just slightly hold it in place. I think I'm going to go ahead and just do some stitch lines on it. So I've just stitched in the ditch just to hold this batting in place. It's going to be held in place during the construction of the bag, so you don't need to get too crazy about it, but you can certainly quilt it as much as you want. So this will be the outer portion of my bag. So I've cut my zipper 1 inch shorter than the width of the bag, the finished width of the bag. And on my 2-inch strip, I've ironed it in half and then folded it in. And I'm going to use this to place on the edge of the zipper, stitch that just to sort of finish the zipper a little bit. So I'll take that to my machine and just stitch, tuck the end of the zipper in here, fold this shut, and then just stitch right along the edge of this tape. So I've stitched both ends of the zipper, and that's going to prevent me from pulling the zipper apart too as I'm working on this. But it just kind of provides a nice finish, and you'll see why it makes the project a little bit easier. And I'll go ahead and just trim these even. You sew right over the zipper. It's a nylon zipper, so I kind of keep it as close as I can on this end and just stitch right over it with your machine and sort of back tack your ends just to secure it. Now I have the bag with the outer fabric on my table, and I'm going to take the zipper with the right side towards the bag and line that up, centering it, so you should have a 1/2 inch on each end. And then we'll take my lining fabric and line that up against the edge. And I'll go ahead and use some little clips to align everything. And then I'll go ahead and sew from one end all the way to the other, right over the zipper, just making sure that the zipper's in about a 1/2 inch. Now, as I stitch this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance down that edge, I'm going to flip it open while it's in my machine, and I'll move the zipper out of the way of the foot and then continue on, so you don't bump that zipper and have a little jagged part to your stitching. You don't need to use a zipper foot for this. You certainly can if you want, but I find that I don't need to because I want part of that zipper to show. So come down here, I'm kind of feeling for where the zipper tab is. I've actually already passed it. But when you need to reach under there and move it out of your way, just zip it out of your way. So I've kind of flipped the fabric around so you can see that the right side of the zipper now is against the right side of the bag. And I'm going to go over to my ironing board and press those edges on both sides, and I will top stitch them down next. So I've pressed that over. I've got a nice clean edge, and I'm just going to top stitch that just 1/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the fabric, just to finish up this edge. And move your zipper out of the way when you need to. Next, I'm going to go ahead and bring over the right side of my bag and line that up with the edge of the zipper, the opposite edge of the zipper. And I'm going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch down for that seam. I'm going to deal with the lining as a separate step. I've flipped it over so I'm sewing from the zipper side. And again, when you get close to your zipper tab, you can go ahead and unzip it, reach under and move that tab out of the way, and then continue your sewing. So I've done the outer part of the fabric, stitched down that zipper, and now I'll flip it over and bring the lining part over, but I'm only going to stitch down 2 or 3 inches on each end, and I'm going to leave an opening in the middle, maybe a 3 or 4 inch opening. So I'll go ahead and pin this and align it. And when I go to stitch it, I will stitch it from this side so I can line the stitching up with the previous stitch line. I'm back tacking there just to secure it because we'll be turning the entire bag over at that point, so we want it to be pretty strong. So you can see the lining is open here. That's where we're going to turn the bag. It keeps you from having to hand stitch at the bottom of the bag. And I'm going to reach into the bag and unzip the zipper. That'll make it easier to turn everything later on. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and reach through the outer part of the fabric, turn the bag inside out because I want to top stitch that zipper down as far as I can reach. So here's our opening in the lining. What I want to do is go over to the iron and press the lining out of the way and the outer part of the fabric, and I will top stitch just a little bit up to about the same point where I've left the opening, and then do the same thing on this end just to finish that fabric so it doesn't get caught in the zipper. So you can see I've pressed this seam, which will make it easier to top stitch this at the very last step. And so I'll go ahead and flip it back around, and I'm just going to top stitch the first and last 3 inches on that to finish that. I'll leave the, you might not back tack if you don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and back tack. It doesn't really matter, but if you want it to look really nice and finished at the end, you can bury those tails later if you want it. And I'll repeat that on the other side. Now turn the bag back to where you've got the lining in the outer part going opposite directions. And I'll use the little clips to line things up. But at this point, what I'm going to do is just sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down the edge of the bag once I kind of align in everything. So you can see my zipper is inside that a little bit, and you can fold it however you need to. And I will just line up these seams and put a clip on it, and then do the same thing down here where the bottom of the bag is. I'll line that up and clip, and then just sew a 1/4 inch down that whole entire edge. And I'll repeat that on the other side. When you get to where the zipper is, you're actually sewing off the end of the zipper, so you're not dealing with that thickness in here. So this is another design decision that you can make. We're going to make this bag so it sits flat on a table, and like I mentioned, I was probably going to use it for knitting or something. And the wider the bottom, the lower the bag will be, the shorter the bag, but you can make that decision. And I'm going to measure from the stitch line and the fold. So you want to pick 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever it is you want to do. Let's go ahead and try 3. Nope, 3 puts me right at that seam, and I don't want to mess with that. So I could go up to 4, or just stick with, let's go ahead and just stick with 2. So from the fold and from the seam is where you're going to measure, and I'll go ahead and cut this out on all 4 corners of the bag. So you can see I've cut that away on my 2-inch mark, and you're going to open this up and pull it open like this and align it, and we'll stitch down each one of these sections to create the gussets at the bottom of the bag. So I've centered the seam, and if you can press it open, that would be great. And then I'm going to just go ahead and stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or even a little bit wider if you feel like you need to, on all 4 of those corners. So at this point, I'm going to find my opening, and I'm going to turn the entire bag inside out until I've got it, the finished part out like I want. So I've turned the whole bag inside out, and the lining is all done. Just want to push out your corners and press if you need to. And now the only thing I need to do is I'll use a little glue stick to anchor this in place, to glue this fold in place, and then I'll finish the top stitching, and my bag is completely done. So this is the glue stick I used to glue this in place, and then I hit it with my iron to dry it, and that way I can make sure that when I top stitch this edge down that it's going to catch that. Just make sure that you're not stitching through another part of the bag. And you are done. The nice thing about this is that the way we finish the zippers, you get a really nice clean finish on that. I'll back up and show you the full bag again. Here it is, the finished bag, zip shut, little base to it, sits up on your table, is lined, and there was absolutely no handwork involved. Everything is nice and finished.